I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. I mean, the super hyperinflation, out of control fuel prices, a dollar buys a nickel's worth. You've got Antifa BLM thugs running loose in the streets and just causing all kinds of havoc. Shopkeepers have to keep a loaded firearm underneath their counter nowadays just to protect them from vandalism and flash mobs and things like that we never heard of a decade ago. Society is collapsing all around us, guys. The financial sector is just in a shambles. It's terrible. It's terrible what they have done in this short amount of time that they've been in office here. Of course, I predicted and I told you guys way back at the end of 2019 how things were going to be if Joe Biden got put into power. And we're seeing the fruits of that labor, unfortunately. That's what we're seeing all around us. When you go to the pump, like right here in my state, where it's an oil-rich state, normally fuel is quite a bit cheaper here. It's $4.55 a gallon for the cheap stuff. And forget about it if you need the high octane or if you need to buy diesel or anything like that. So this is clearly part of the Agenda 2030 Great Reset Plan to break the back of the United States of America. And that's what we're going through. So rather than me just sit here and tell you all of the horrible things that are going on all around the country. I mean, the border's wide open. They're bringing in criminals. They're bringing in all sorts of unsavory characters from around the world that are just sneaking right up through our southern border. Eventually, that stuff's going to hit. And when it does, it's going to all be a perfect storm, and that's what they're setting us up for here. That's all part of the Hegelian dialectic where it's problem, reaction, solution, right? Well, first the government has to create the problem, and that's what they're doing, except for we have never seen anything like this where it's so many different things converging together to basically form what I think is going to be a collapse of the entire system. And because of that, I'm trying to get prepared. I'm trying to prepare myself, prepare my family, prepare people that are subscribers of the channel, that you guys, a lot of this stuff we've covered before, and it's going to be a little bit redundant, but this is also inclusive to new people that are just getting into prepping. You're late to the game. Let me tell you, if you're just now getting started and you're watching this video, it's the first one you've ever seen that encourages you to go out and stock up and get prepared. You're behind the curve. You need to go ahead and just basically pause the video right now and go to the store and buy everything you can buy that you're going to need for at minimum the next 6 months. I would advise people to have multiple years, however much you can afford. That's going to be up to your individual budget and things like that. But we're going to get into 12 things that I think are critical for everyone to do and to pay attention to as we're going into this collapse. Because if you don't have these 12 things in order, you're going to find yourself up the creek without the paddle. So let's get into it. Number one, and these are not necessarily in any numerical order of importance. They're just as I listed them down and as I was writing down what our plans are, this is what I came up with. So number one, location is everything. I have tried talking to people over and over every which way I can, nice and trying to be nice and cordial to people and encouraging them gently to get out into the countryside or out at least into the suburbs. If you can't afford to get to the, to the country, at least get to the suburbs, get out of the major cities. Get out if you can. If you can't get out, I understand some people have family obligations and things like that, jobs, different things that are keeping them tied to the city. But let me tell you, that is a sinking vessel. You don't want to be anywhere near a city when the collapse does come, because it's going to collapse suddenly, and the cities are going to be the first ones where the crime and just the horrific things are going to shoot through the roof. And it simply has to do with population density and the attitude of people, most people that are in the cities. It's not 100%, but the vast majority of people that are in the cities are not self-reliant. They're not practicing self-reliance. They're not looking at stocking up for when the SHTF happens. So what does that mean? They're going to instantly become marauders as soon as they run out of food. As soon as that SNAP card is turned off or their government assistance is turned off because the government goes belly up and bankrupt, then they're going to come to the other people around them and take from them, because starvation is it's a very high motivating thing that will get people to do things that they wouldn't normally do, even good people. When their belly gets hungry enough, or when they're watching their wife or their kid or their loved one starve, things can get ugly really fast, and I would not want to be anywhere near a city. In fact, once SHTF happens, I plan to never go to a city again unless, one day it gets restored, and things start coming back to normal. Then maybe I could go back to a city. But I would just write the cities off because it's a death sentence to go in there or to be living there. So next up, number 2, and I'm not offering anyone any financial advice or anything like that. This is just my SHTF financial plan that the wife and I have been doing for years and years already, but we're trying to even crack down even tighter on this. And what is it? It's reduce expenses, get out of debt, stay out of debt. It sounds pretty simple, but if you've got a massive pile of debt somewhere, maybe you owe on that car or on that house or on a credit cards and things like that, you need to get those paid down immediately, get out of debt, because, even if the system collapses, there are tools these people that you're in debt to can use against you, and that would be bad, especially if you lose all sources of income, or the economy and the system just collapses to the point where people just quit going to work because they're so scared to leave their loved ones out of fear of, having marauders come around or worse. So my advice and what we're trying to do here at my household is cut all non-essential expenses. And so one of the things we've done over the years is, for one, we got out of cable a long time ago. So if you're paying for cable TV, especially if you've got one of the big sports packages or whatever, I get it, you like sports or whatever as a distraction, but here's the deal. You're going to want that food instead of paying that, $100 some odd a month cable bill. I would cut cable, cut Netflix, cut anything like that. That's non-essential. Anything that you don't have to live. I get it. It's not cool to have rabbit ears. I get criticized when people come over and they're like, what is this? And I've got an old pair of rabbit ears, the old kind that you have to wiggle around to get reception and stuff. But it's free. And you can always go to the library, go to your local library, get a library card, and you can rent movies from them for free, so you can still watch modern feature films and things like that. So there are other things you can do. And also, you're not going to have as much time for sitting around, watching TV and stuff like that, and cable especially, and even movies, because you're going to be really busy doing all this other stuff that I'm talking about. Number 3, you're going to want to develop a water plan, and it needs to be a sound plan. You need to test this plan. You need to be able to pump water even when the power is off. So if you live in a city, you're on city water supply for sure. You're on some sort of municipal water supply that's treated by the city and pumped by the city into your pipes, into your house. That is no plan. There is no way to base a plan out of that, because once the city power supply runs out, no more water will be flowing through those pipes. So if you're in the city right there, your water plan is going to be a lot harder. I'm not saying there's nothing you can do, but it's going to be much more difficult than if you live in the suburbs or live in the country where you probably have a well. If you have your own water well, that is a form of independence. You have a lot higher advantage than other people that are in the city or in places where there's city water, basically, and sewage and stuff like that. So if you have your own well and septic, that's going to be a big deal, a big advantage for you when the SHTF does happen. But you're still going to need to be able to, that well has to have power to pump that water out from however deep it is. And depending on where you are in the nation, that water could be 400 or 500 feet deep, or as shallow as, 30, 40 feet deep, just depending on where your water tables are in your area. For shallower wells, it's pretty easy to put in an old-fashioned pitcher type well pump, and those are fairly easy to install alongside of your standard 220 volt well pump that'll stay down in the hole. So there are some options, a lot more options if you've got shallow water. If you've got water access at 30 to 50 feet, something like that, you should be able to use some sort of a hand pump. Beyond 50 or 100 feet or so, you're going to need to use specialized type hand pumps, and the only one I've ever seen capable of doing it is called a simple pump, and the last time I priced them, it was about $1,500 for all of the componentry you would need, and you would probably have to, I'm not sure if you'd have to pull your well to install it or not, but you definitely have to have a special well cap made to support that simple pump, and you'd have to be able to get in there and access it because it's a hand crank pump. They do have a solar motor you can and a solar panel you can hook up to it and run it off the solar, but I would probably, at least for starters, just stick with the hand crank. especially in a survival situation. You're not going to be wasting any water, especially if you hand crank it. So, you know, you could set it up to where it'd be a real pain to water your garden and stuff like that, and to fill up your toilet bowls, because if you're on a septic, you could run your water into the house and fill up sinks and bathtubs and things like that with a hand pump. Yeah, it's going to take a while of cranking and stuff like that. It'll be annoying, but it's better than not having water, right? So it's just very important. I can't stress the water enough. In fact, I've made several standalone videos just about water, because that's how important water is. Without water, nothing else is going to matter. So you need to really put a lot of emphasis on that. Moving on, number 4, you need to become more self-reliant all the way around. And that's kind of what this video is talking about. You need to become your own everything. You need to grow your own food so you can become your own pantry, your own grocery store, right? Gardening and livestock is going to be important. So if you like to eat meat, you probably want to have some dual purpose chickens and possibly some rabbits. That's small scale. If you've got more room, you could probably have goats or sheep, or maybe even cattle, things like that, hogs, things like that, that you can essentially set up a true homestead where you're as self-reliant as possible. I get it. You're not going to be able to make your own salt, and you're not going to be able to, you know, probably grow your own rice and things like that unless you're in the right part of the United States. But the things that you can't grow, obviously you still have to buy from the store, but grow as much as you can, because in really hard times, you could live off of that. And that might just get you through that cold, harsh winter, the dark winter, or whatever Joe Biden called it. That I guess we already went through it, but who knows? The way things are shaping up, it looks like next winter may be even worse. So self-reliance is key, as self-reliant as you can possibly be. That's kind of the theme to all of this stuff. Don't wait around for somebody else to come take care of you, because they ain't coming. In the SHTF, the people that are going to be coming are going to be coming to do you harm and take your things away from you. So just know that. Number 5, store as much food as possible. Right now, you know, you've still got that fiat currency, right? So it's still worth something. It's worth less than it was a year or two ago, but it's not completely worthless yet. But it could be one day. What if it was? What if one day you woke up and there was a run on the banks, and there was just no more money, and they had printed us into oblivion to the point where everyone canceled all of our debt and all this other stuff, and China starts calling in on all the debt we owe them? I mean, what would happen? The entire financial system would collapse instantly. And if that happened, it could be like the Weimar Republic, where you're taking literally a wheelbarrow full of money, might all be $100 bills, down to the store to get one loaf of bread or something like that. So also another factor right here that we've got stacking up against us is it's not always just about inflation. Sometimes it's about availability. So as we're seeing farmers produce less and less product because of the rising cost of diesel and the cost of all the other things that go along with, you know, having a productive farm, then that means there's going to be less at the store available. So earlier today, I heard the USDA, I believe it was, came out with their prediction on inflation, and it was not good, guys. They were talking about some stuff like eggs, 20% increase over what it was. And I've seen tons and tons of news stories. I haven't even mentioned it on the channel here, but I've been paying attention to all of the different food producing plants around the country. I think it's up to 26 now. Just the other night, a chicken plant mysteriously burst into flames and killed something like 200 or 400,000 chickens. And just so happened that place was one of the major egg suppliers of all of the retail chains in the United States of America, like Walmart, one of the biggest ones. So look for rising egg prices. But if you had your own chickens and they were laying eggs, you wouldn't need to worry about that. And you could also possibly sell some of those eggs to other people. So you're going to want to store as much food as you can possibly get while the fiat currency still retains some value. Dry goods obviously are going to last the longest without refrigeration, because we need to be thinking about that in the back of our minds because of what other people have said earlier. The power grids this year are going to be facing enormous strain because they're not able to keep up with the demands of the green energy people, the people that want to instantly change everything over to solar and wind power. Haven't thought about the repercussions of and the pain that that's going to bring to everyone during that transition. And even the power companies are saying that there's no way they can possibly do what these government bureaucrats have demanded them to do. So They've created an impossible situation here. We don't have provable methods that are reliable enough yet to replace our proven methods of oil and energy production. So they're basically, cutting our legs out from underneath us here. So look for brownouts at very least, and possibly a grid collapse based on idiotic decisions coming out of the White House and their administration. So that's all bad stuff, obviously. But you want to stock up on everything while you can. And non-refrigerated items are going to be key, because when the power goes out, you're only going to be able to run your generator for so long. You're going to want to get canned meats and vegetables while you can. Number 6, you're going to want seasonally appropriate work clothing. And I emphasize work clothing. If you have an office job now, or you work in retail or something like that in an air-conditioned environment, you're not going to be used to the summertime heat. And even worse than that, the wintertime cold when that comes. So I don't know, depends on where you are. I'm in an area here where the summertime heat can be just as deadly as the wintertime cold. So you're going to need appropriate, seasonally appropriate clothing and work boots as well. You're going to be doing things that, you're going to be working in your garden a lot more. You're going to be, actually taking hand tools out and tilling your garden and doing things like that, and pulling weeds and things like that. So you're going to need some pretty hardcore clothing that can handle, outdoor work, including shoes. So, that's another thing you might think about, winter coats and things like that. You can buy these right now in the summertime. Usually you can go down to a lot of the stores will have sales. If you don't have a lot of money to spend, go down and hit the Goodwill in the summertime, and you can find really heavy duty winter jackets that you can pick up for cheap because it's summertime. So go do that and try to get the most out of your fiat currency while you can. But winter coats and blankets, even if they don't fit you and you see a great deal on them, pick them up, because you could actually use that for a bartering item in the future for someone who didn't think about that. Blankets especially. I think that's going to be a hot ticket item. A lot of people aren't going to be thinking about that, especially once that grid goes down and they don't have a wood stove or any other way to provide heat. They're going to be wanting to use a lot more blankets. Number 7. Prepare to be your own doctor. And I know, man, that sounds scary. I don't like the prospect of that at all. But right now, you're going to need to stock up on meds, anything you need, specialty medicines that you need to stay alive, especially those kinds of things. And also medicines you might need to just keep you comfortable. You're going to want bandages, ointments, and disinfectants. Your alcohols, your peroxides, neosporin creams, different things like that. You're going to want all of that stuff. And most importantly, you're going to want books on field medicine and also plant medicine. There's a lot of stuff that has been lost along the way because of Big Pharma's takeover of the medical industry. But there's a lot of different plants around that probably grow in your area that have medicinal properties. And you should know those. You should have books on those. And those are going to be regional based on your area and your climate. Number 8, you want to stay fresh and clean. If you start getting dirty too much, then obviously you're going to have skin problems and things like that. But personal hygiene products are going to be paramount, not only for using, but also for bartering. So you want, your soaps, your deo, your oral care stuff, toothbrushes, toothpaste, floss, things like that. You're going to want feminine hygiene products, infant care products. Even if you don't have a baby, even if there's not a woman living in your household, get those things. For one thing, I could probably do a whole standalone video on all the different survival things you can do just with one tampon. I mean, I've seen guys in a real pinch. If you get a bullet wound, you can actually stick a tampon inside of there, and it will at least slow the bleeding until you can get proper medical attention. So there's just a ton of things. Starting fires with them. I mean, tons and tons of things that you can do. Filtering water even. And also, if a woman around needs a tampon, then she's going to probably want to barter with you for that item. So just things that you might be thinking about as the currency collapses. We're going to need to think of other things and items that are readily available right now, but will not be available post-collapse, that will be like a form of currency. That's important. So number 9 here, you're going to want to become your own power plant during grid down. As we talked about briefly before, that, Biden and his administration have basically kicked the legs out from underneath the oil power plants and different things like that, heating oils, different things. The entire energy sector is under attack from Biden's Green New Deal. And I know they didn't get the actual Green New Deal passed, but Biden has found a way to backdoor it in through all of his bureaucracies. He's just using the EPA and other groups like that to backdoor his green energy policy. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing around the country. So I'm going to insert a chart here just to show you guys all the different things that Biden has done since he took office that have hurt the energy sector. And we'll just look at that while we're talking about the rest of this stuff. But you're going to want to be your own power plant during grid down for sure. You need to be able to produce power, at least enough to, for one, keep your freezers and your refrigerators going and things like that, but also to charge other devices, to run lights, to things like that. And I wouldn't advise running lights off of a generator. You'd probably want to have solar power for that, and batteries and a battery backup system and things like that. So it's not too late to get yourself set up to where if the grid does go down, at least for short periods, you can run your own power and produce your own power. It's going to be really important. And think on a small scale too, like small rechargeable batteries like AA's and AAA's and things like that. They've got solar recharger stations, and I should do a video on one of these days. I have one that recharges like AAA's and AA's. I don't think it does anything else, but that covers me. It covers all the flashlights I use, and it covers weapons lights and anything like that that I'm going to have that I need to charge up. And, stock up on that now while it's relatively cheap, while your fiat currency still has some value to it. Number 10, you're going to need tools, lots of tools. I mean, you can see around here behind me, I've got a whole wall full of tools here, and this is probably only it's a fraction. I don't want to say how much. It may be a quarter of the tools that I have. So many of them are over in my big shop, the bigger tools, hoists and stands and different things like that. But you're going to want to think about things in terms of being off grid as well. So even though you have that wall outlet right now that you can plug into, right? What if it doesn't come on? You're going to want to have hand tools. You're going to want to have, screwdrivers. And even like I'm looking back here behind me, I keep these old things like this around that you can find at like swap meets and stuff like that for $10 a dozen. These kinds of tools like this have very little value right now in our system, but a little hand drill like this could be the difference between attaching a board or not during SHTF, because if your drill runs out of battery, then you're going to need something else, right? So hand saws, different things, planes, things like that for woodworking mainly, but even for metalworking, you're going to want to have hacksaws and different things like that to handle your basic metalworking when SHTF happens. You're also going to want to have all of the hand tools you're going to use in the garden, like shovels and hoes and rakes and different things like that you're going to need to keep your garden going. And anything you might need to handle your livestock, all of those tools need to be on hand and ready to go. And you got to think of it like, hey, what if I can never get another shovel again? What if the system never reboots and I can never get another shovel again? So you want to get high quality stuff so that when the SHTF does happen, you don't break the handle or something the first time you try to use it. So get quality tools. That's really important. And learn all you can while we have the internet. Learn everything you can about how to use those tools and how to fix and repair things, because it's going to be all up to you. Just like you're going to have to be your own doctor, you're going to have to be your own mechanic as well. So I advise you brush up on that, or at very least get all the repair manuals you can for everything that you think you might have to repair in the future. So number 11 here, you're going to want emergency repair supplies for your structures. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but think about it. If marauders are coming around and other things are happening, maybe just a big hailstorm happens or something, you're going to need to be able to fix your house, because now you're your own carpenter and your own repairman, right? So, or woman or whatever. So not only are you going to need the tools, you're going to need the supplies to be able to repair your structures. And things I recommend stocking up on now, even though they're not as cheap as they once were, still do it. Plywood. You can use that if somebody breaks a window out. You can go on the outside and screw some plywood on, and that will keep the weather, at least the majority of it, from getting in, and it will keep other people from being able to get in and out of that opening, and animals and bugs and things like that. So you're going to want some plywood around because, glass is not very durable, and it'll be the first thing that gets broken if all hell breaks loose. So count up your windows, count up how many pieces of plywood you're going to need, and have that set aside for that. Other things you might think about are just like 2x4s. You can build almost anything out of 2x4s, and some nails and screws and things like that, you know, that you can attach different things, some different fasteners that can be used fasteners that you're saving from jobs that you've torn apart, things like that. If you can't afford to go out and get wood, go get free pallets. They're readily available in every major city. Go around, find a business, they'll let you come by and get pallets and harvest the wood off of that. It may not be as good, but it'll be better than nothing. Also, you're going to want to have tarps and things like that in case you get a hole in your roof. You could get up there with some roofing nails and nail on a tarp. You're going to want to do it in a way where the wind won't just rip it right off. But if you nail on a tarp the right way, you should be able to stop your house from leaking, and that's going to be really important. You might also think about picking up some sandbags for obvious reasons. For one, if there was ever a flash flood or something, there's a lot you could do to stop the flood waters from getting inside your house. But also, sandbags are really great for stopping bullets, enemy bullets, people trying to take you out, take your stuff. Probably ought to have some sandbags. They don't take up much space, and you don't have to put sand in them. You could put regular dirt in them, whatever you've got. You could probably put rocks in them, but I would recommend dirt or sand. That's what they're designed for. Last one on the list here, and last but not least, guns and ammo, as much as you can possibly get. And you better get them while you can. And in fact, I'm going to leave with this note here. If you ever wanted an AR-15, you probably ought to get it now. The way things are looking, the Republicans, a lot of the rhinos are siding with the Democrats, and I'm not saying they're going to ban them, but they're pushing harder than I've ever seen for an all-out assault weapons ban, a rehash of the 90s assault weapons ban. And it might even go further. Some of them are calling for confiscation. So if you ever wanted an AR-15, you probably ought to get one now, or an AK-47, whatever your flavor is. But you know, and you can't just have the guns. You got to be practiced up on them, know how to use them, know how to clean them, know about gun safety. All of these things are really critical to learn now while the grid is still going. While you can get on YouTube and go research and study all these different things, do it while you can, guys. This may be your last chance. Things are not looking good, as you know. Again, I don't have to tell you things are bad. All you have to do is turn on the news or turn on any channel anywhere. Even people that are non-political are addressing the rising cost of just living here in the United States. And so as that cost continues to rise, crime is going to continue to rise right alongside of it. I appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, I stand for liberty. I hope you do too. If there's anything that I left out that you think is critically important for people to stock up on and to have before the SHTF happens, let us know down in the comments. I always love reading them. And until then, we'll see you next time.